first thing I wanted to say was it was completed by 100% of the members of the panel. Everyone says, wow, it's not possible, but it is indeed the case. So would you like, that's really important. So the second one is a quote from government where they said a lot of the point raised in the tracker are similar to those we hear from other people, and it's useful to see the trackers validating these issues. So in other words, from government's point of view, what we have is a tracker that is definitive. So let's get into it. So the first thing is the confidence index. The confidence index is 78%. And what that means in practice is about 84% of the firms that complete the tracker said they were looking to expand, and 6% said they were looking to contract. Now, that is dramatically higher than the services index that you get through other organizations. And I think what that says to me is that professional services remains one of the fastest, if not the fastest growing sector in the UK. And there's a slight uptick. We've gone up from 76 to 78%. Another question we ask in the tracker is about who's on track for success. And if you like, that might give a little bit of feeling as to is the growth strong or is the growth less strong? And again, 80% of the firms, 79%, I think it is if I look, are saying that's the red one. We are on track for success. And our key clients is at 63. And what's interesting is that the gap is slightly narrowing, apart from the kind of weird one back in September 22, when some reason everybody thought that clients were nowhere, but I think that was just a blip. Some surveys get them, but there's a fairly clear pattern, and those two numbers are getting slightly closer together. What about new workflow? Again, that's really strong. That's 88% growth, 2% contraction. And then when it comes to headcount, and this is perhaps a more interesting one, because the last 2 or 3 trackers, it's gone down from 78 to 72 to 64. It's now gone up to 71%, but the actual contraction has remained 645, so it hasn't really shifted. So again, what you're seeing is a little bit of a rebound around headcount growth. Now, where they're going to come from, that's another story, and I'm sure Sophie will have views on that when we get into the panel session. In terms of priorities, and what are people talking about? We always find this quite interesting. The light blue one, which is people, has been, is always very high, and it's high at the moment. The other one that is always very, very high is the olive one, which is the finance. Those two kind of play the number 1 and 2. But what then is interesting is the purple one, operational performance, which has been kind of in the middle of the pack, has now risen to be nearly at the top. So and finance has fallen away. So operational performance and finance are at about the same level in terms of priority. Again, we have Rod, who's a finance director, and he, I'm sure, will have views on that as to is that what he's getting in his partner discussions. Moving on to efficiency. This is quite an interesting one. The one that's really shot up over to the far on the right is the increasing of operational efficiency. Now, that's a term that lots of people may interpret to mean different things, but what I see it as being, let's focus on running this business as effectively as we can. And that one has shot up significantly. It's been pretty flat for, I don't know, a year or so, and now it suddenly shot up in the last tracker. And then developing commerciality has dropped back a little bit, but it's still very high. But the other one that's quite interesting is the sort of ping in and out, if you like, on the technology, which is the purple one. In other words, it went up a lot. This was pre-think Gen AI. Last tracker, down again, and then up again. And remember, this is the same firms, same people in the same firms completing it, 100% completion. So it's a very, very reliable shift in tracker opinion. What's getting in the way? The one that typically has been very, very high was the poor economic climate. If you look back into about 1920, when we were in the middle of COVID, that was really, really high. Those olive ones were right up there on the left. Now it's kind of a little bit further away, and the one that's coming through is margin erosion and the fee pressures. So it's more the traditional areas rather than the external. But there's always an interesting one here. The one that's really interesting for me on this chart is the blue one. And the blue one tells us that actually the political uncertainty, and we've heard from John a minute ago about some of the reasons why that might be the case, has significantly increased. It was running around about 20%. It's now up to at 30. So that's quite a big movement in one quarter for the same firms, for the same people. So clearly this is, whether it's election year, all the other things that John mentioned, I'm not sure, but that clearly, that level of uncertainty has increased significantly. Um, People-based activities in terms of management and contributing most to helping firms achieve their goals. The one that is consistently at or above the top is the blue one, which is getting the best from your team. And then the next one is communicating effectively. So these are all people-based activities. The how shall I put it? This list was about 10 lists, comes from London Business School. Not all of them are people-based, but those are the three that definitely come through the highest. In terms of people working from home, between a half and a quarter are working, 85% working from home. And there's not much going on in terms of office space requirements. Again, Rod will be much closer to that, given he works for a property consultancy. But generally, the big olive bit in the middle are people who are saying it's about the same, no real changes. There's a few at the top, the purple ones, who want some more, and then there's a little bit less who want, in the sort of the, I'm not very good at colors, the sort of brownie and blue is the people who want either 10% or 20% less. Interesting, if you look at blue, which is 20% less, and you go back to 2020, that was about 50%. So things have changed, settled, if you like. And only 18% of firms are reporting increased productivity from remote working. And we were having a chat in the green room about this and the extent to which, if you did a survey, half the people would say they're in favor of remote working, and the other half would say, no, we want everybody back in the office. I sense that one is just going to be an ongoing problem or issue for as long as one can remember. So let's just run through what I've just gone through so that you can basically do this. So uptick in competence levels, and that's true across activity levels, across the new workflow, and across headcount. The gap is narrowing between firms and key clients over the extent on track for success. That's, I think, I'll be tracking that one. It's quite interesting because if you recall, we're okay, but our clients are struggling, isn't a very good place to make money in the longer term. People in the firm as an employer, that's carrying more weight during the partner discussions, for finance falling away a bit. Operational efficiency has materially increased in priority, and tech has kind of rebounded in terms of priority. And remember, it's just the top three that people can score. The economic climate fallen back as a bit as a constraint, but there's a big increase in political uncertainty. People-based activities are seen to be contributing most to achieving people's goals. That probably won't be surprising. Equally, 85% of people, I think it was 88 last quarter, says no real difference, are working between a half and a quarter of their time from home. Somebody said, oh, you should do it in terms of days. And I said, no, you should average it. Otherwise, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. Few firms are looking to alter their office space requirements. And finally, only 18% of firms are reporting increased productivity from remote working. So that's probably enough.